Welcome back to another episode of the Two Balls, One Basket podcast, a podcast of the Playbook Sports Network. Make sure to follow us on Twitter or X at PlaybookSN and to visit our website, playbooksn.com. As always, I'm your host, Jordan, and with me today, big guest, 2020 Miami Dolphins Fan of the Year. You may know him on X as Big E.
Hey, Jordan. I'm really happy to be here, man. I appreciate you inviting me to this podcast today.
Ian, we got some Dolphins football coming up this weekend, finally.
It's been a long time coming, and we ever since that playoff loss, we've had this certain taste in our mouth that we need more Dolphins football. And you're right, we're just a couple days away, man. So it's this weekend is really exciting.
So we'll start off with, we'll talk about Sunday's matchup. We got the Chargers, 425. Unfortunately, I'm going to be in Israel this weekend, so I'm going to be up at some outrageous hour. I am watching the game. I refuse to miss it. Everyone knows don't bother me when the game's on. What do you think's going on? So are we going to win the game? How do you think it's going to go?
I have picked the Dolphins to win this game, and there's a couple of reasons behind it. And I'm actually really optimistic on the Dolphins season. It's so interesting because when you look at a couple of different NFL media experts, not experts, but some very well-known people amongst the industry. A lot of experts take the Dolphins to make it to the playoffs, to win the playoffs, and then you got a small number who say the Dolphins are going to be the odd men looking in, and they're not going to make the playoffs. But I feel that, especially for this weekend's game, the Dolphins are going to have a different defensive coordinator, a totally different defense than what I say San Diego Chargers, but the Los Angeles Chargers saw last season when they beat the Miami Dolphins. So, instead of seeing cover zero, it felt like every other play, you're going to have a 3-4 defense coming at you where you got Bradley Chubb coming from one side, you've got Jalen Phillips coming from the other side, and then you got Zach Sealer, Christian Wilkins pushing up the middle, which is really hard-nosed football, right? It's traditional football. Let the safeties, let the cornerbacks work in the backfield, spend a little time in the backfield, but then you got these rushing guys coming, and you don't know which angle they're coming from on the linebacker side. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that works. But then on the offensive side of the ball, there hasn't been a lot of change. There hasn't been a lot of personnel change on the offensive side of the ball. Some people look at that as a negative, but I look at that as a positive because this is the first time in Tua's NFL career where he actually has consistency on the offensive side of the ball. And it's the first time that he has the opportunity to use a similar playbook than he had the prior season. So this has been the opportunity for them to kind of strengthen what they already did well. The most important thing, I think, out of everything, and I think any team can say this, is a team has to stay healthy, right? And I think this weekend you'll see the offense kind of keeping up with the Chargers. I think you're going to see them run the ball a lot more frequently than we saw last season, because that is something that McDaniel has said he really needs to focus on. Who is going to be the lead running back? That's going to be interesting to see. I saw today Devon Achane is back at practice, so he might be available. You've got Mostert, who's going to be back there. You've got Brooks, who was a surprise preseason player who made it to the 53-man roster. He might get a couple of carries. So I do see the Dolphins winning this one this coming weekend. What about you? What do you think?
So I'm kind of like on the fence because it's like I've noticed I've really started following the Dolphins very closely my senior year of college, and that was Tua's first year. And I noticed that it was either the defense was really good and the offense was subpar, or the offense
Or
was
vice versa.
good. Yeah. So just like last year, the offense, we were like top 4,
Yeah.
and the defense was bottom of the league.
We were
So
in the
it's like
20s for the defense. Yeah.
now we got Vic Fangio. They're expected to be really good. It's supposed to be a top 10 defense. Fangio's known for always having at least a top 7 defense.
Yep.
And like you said, the Dolphins didn't make much of a change on offense, which could be a good thing because the offense was top 5 in the league last year. And I've said this on many podcasts. I say it all over Twitter. I think the Dolphins offense goes as far as a healthy, emphasis on healthy, Tua will take them.
True. I think everybody says that. Yeah, and it's not wrong because if you want to, you get Mike White in there, which was announced today. He's going to be the second string quarterback. I just don't know. It's a totally different game. It's a totally different game than what Tua has, and I just don't know if we'd have any. I don't know what type of success we'd see from Mike White. He had his ups and downs when he was with the Jets, and he had to start. So
I think Mike White is more so like a Skylar Thompson last year. It's not going to be pretty, but he'll do anything he can to win the game.
yeah,
Just take the Jets game that ended the season last year. What do we win? Like 9-6?
I think it ended up being 12-9 because we got an extra something. I don't know. It was horrifying to watch. But at the end of the game, when we won and we made it to the playoffs, that's all that mattered.
I'm not going to go based off the preseason because, both sides of the ball looked really ugly in the preseason.
Yeah.
But I do think we're going to pull out this win Sunday. I think the defense is just going to absolutely have a day. They're going to get to Justin Herbert. He's going to make sure okay, I got to get rid of this ball. Phillips and Chubb are coming no matter where I throw, no matter how long I have. So I think it's going to be more so on Tua. But, the offensive line is just never, in my opinion, I don't know. In my lifetime, they haven't been good. So I'm hoping at some point before I leave this wonderful planet, the Miami Dolphins offensive line is above average. But
Yeah.
I think we're going to win a close game. I don't think it's going to be a shootout. I've heard a lot of people say, it's going to be a high scoring game. You got Herbert, you got Tyreek and Tua. I think it's going to be a close, low scoring game. And I think we're going to pull it out.
I hope so. I know you're going to be, you said you're going to be in Israel for the game. I'm actually going to be in LA for the game. And yeah,
Are you going?
yeah, I'm going to that game. So it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to be there. And the thing is too, is unfortunately for the Chargers, fortunately for us, when LA moved from San Diego, when the Chargers moved from San Diego to LA, excuse me, a lot of their fans didn't come with them. So their stadium, they've got this beautiful SoFi stadium that I can't wait to see. It's like a wonder of the world, I guess people are talking about. A lot of away fans fill that stadium, and last season it was evident of that. And it's not like the Chargers are a bad football team either; they're a good football team. But from what I understand, around half the stadium is going to be Dolphins fans this coming weekend. So that's going to be fun to be there, to be part of that too.
Rightfully so. So you mentioned, I wasn't going to talk about this, but you mentioned it, and now it's kind of interesting to me. You said, so we know Jeff Wilson's on IR, and I still think, I drafted Raheem Mostert in fantasy solely because Jeff Wilson went on IR.
Sure.
So I do think that Raheem Mostert's going to be the lead back, but I'm very excited for Devon Chain because I think if Jeff Wilson were not on IR, I don't think we would see much of him this season, maybe later on. But I think now he has a chance to step up. And who knows, we were in the trade talks for Jonathan Taylor. If A-Chain is what we think he could be, I think you could see like Mostert or Jeff Wilson go in a trade for Jonathan Taylor later on in the season or maybe the beginning of next season. And then if you have two young running backs in Jonathan Taylor and Devon A-Chain, your backfield's kind of solidified for a couple of years. So what do you think about that?
The interesting thing, yeah, and I'll tell you the interesting thing, and we haven't even talked about him yet, is Salvin Ahmed. He went and had that the last game in the preseason, and he was running all over the place. He was making jumps, and I think he solidified his spot on the roster as well. So it's going to be interesting. We thought last season that Raheem Mostert was going to be the lead running back and that he was going to have 80% of the carries, and then things kind of changed. Last season too, if you remember, we had Chase Edmonds for like 5 minutes.
Oh, I know.
And
Drafted him too.
And between the two of them, they really, and I don't know if it's to their fault either, because again, Coach McDaniel has come out and clearly said, I didn't stay consistent to the run game when I should have. There were certain games where we had success in the first half with the run game, and then for one reason or another, we completely abandoned it in the second half. And I think he has done a lot of self-reflection as a coach and said, this is something that I need to change. So if it's true and what he is saying is true, then we should see a Raheem Mostert get the rock a lot more times than he did last season. But to your point too, I really like the prospects with Devon Chain, and the Dolphins Dolphins usually don't pick a running back in the first 2 or 3 rounds. Like historically speaking, that is very rare. So if this kid can do, what we saw a little bit of, we saw some flashes in the preseason. The thing with him is that he's always running forward. He's always gaining an additional yard or 2 yards. He can catch from the backfield. If we can see him on display, I think we could see some good things. And the only hesitation I have with him right now to start the season is that he had that shoulder injury in the
Mhm.
preseason. So a shoulder injury for a running back, that might linger a little bit because where are they getting hit every single time they get the rock? They're getting hit in the upper body, and they may be very cautious with him, and they may say we don't want to put too much strain on that shoulder because we want it to heal because we want to see you do well later on in the season. But I mean, the backfield, I feel I've always said it, and I think Barry Jackson has come out, and he has said it too, especially when we were looking at Dalvin Cook. Dolphins didn't want to overspend for Dalvin Cook because they felt really good about their running game and about their running game, their running back room right now. Um, and I think the same is the same. I think the same can be said when they were looking for Jonathan Taylor. They weren't going to break the bank. They were definitely not going to send Jalen Waddle to the Colts because they like their running back room. So we'll see. We'll see. And an offensive line, you mentioned the offensive line too. And Chris Greer is quoted with saying something in April that he said, you guys, meaning the fans, meaning the media, you guys are more concerned about the offensive line than we are. And here's my only comment to that. Prove it. It's time for us to see it. Like you said, since you've been around, there's only been one time when this offensive line was working on all cylinders, and we had a running back by the name of Jay Ajayi, and he was running 200 yards a game, and the quarterback, I think it was, I forget who the quarterback. Oh no, it was Tannehill. It was
Yeah,
Tannehill at the time. Tannehill had time to throw the ball, and then when you have a running game like that, play action works beautifully, right? So we'll see. Again, this is going to be the first time that these guys, this offensive line, has consistency as well because it's been a revolving door. So I'm interested and I'm optimistic about what this group is going to do being together for 2 years in a row.
So now you mentioned McDaniel abandoning the run game, which throughout the season last year, I found kind of funny because wasn't he known for being like this run game
Run
savant?
game coordinator, right? Running game
Yeah.
coordinator. He was yeah. I mean, Eddie running back who touched the ball in with the 49ers when he was there, they always turned to goals for some reason because of the scheme that he would set up. So yeah,
I think he got the cool shiny toys of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. He's like, oh my God, these guys are so fast and they catch everything. So he's like, we don't even need to run the ball. Just throw the ball 70 yards down the field and let them run away with it.
I will tell you the one thing that I kind of perked up for in the preseason was seeing those jet sweeps and Eric Ezukama. First of all, to see Eric being participating in the
I
offense
love
offense. Yeah, and he wasn't anywhere last season. Again, I don't know if it was to his fault or if it was, as you mentioned, the shiny toys. I mean, I think Tyreek goes into the huddle every single time and says, "Just give me the ball. I'll figure out something.
probably.
I'll get you some yards. Just throw me the ball, right?" And then you got Waddle on the other side being like, "I might be open. Just throw me the ball if he's got double or triple coverage." But I think if we see some of the jet sweeps, because that's the one thing that we did see a lot more last season than we have the prior seasons is a lot of pre-snap motion. And if we can get that and we can get that right, and Eric Ezekama can be as successful as he was, then you don't need, again, we're talking about a running back room, but you've got wide receivers who are almost acting as running backs because they're carrying the ball and they're getting some space. Fun fact, Tyreek Hill, if I remember correctly, was a running back when he first came into the league. He was being used as a running back, and then they transitioned to a wide receiver. Yeah. And I swear I read that. I hope I'm not dreaming. I was. I'm gonna have to look it up as we're speaking now too, just to make sure.
I really thought when we got McDaniel, I was like, oh my God, they're going to use Tyreek Hill as a running back, as a receiver. They might even use him as a punter sometimes. Because like you saw what they did with Deebo Samuel. The guy he had what, 15 rushing touchdowns and like 20 receiving touchdowns. And Tyreek Hill's much better than Deebo.
Yeah, no, and I thought they were going to transition Tyreek into kind of like that Debo model as well, but no, Tyreek. I mean, Tyreek had a few like that, but no, he likes his little wide receiver spot. I can't find
So
it. It's in there.
now I have a little segment. I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to bring up pictures of Dolphin players going into the season.
Okay.
I want your opinion on how they're going to do this season, what they're going to do this season. Just, I want to hear your perspective.
Okay.
Let me get this going. We will start with this one. Jalen Phillips.
Yeah, Jalen Phillips, he really turned it on nicely at the end of last season. And I have picked him to have a breakout season with the Miami Dolphins this year. I do anticipate him having double-digit sacks, especially with the Vic Fangio defense that they're going to be running, and he's going to be able to rush from the edge. He's going to be able to rush from standing up, or he can come up to the line if he wants to. And the man is chiseled. He's just all muscle, and his skills too. Just I'm really looking forward to what he can do this season. I've read it on multiple websites that a lot of people are picking him to be one of the top sack defenders this season.
So, like I told you before we started, I'm a big Heat fan as well. And I've noticed that in my lifetime, whenever I complain about a draft pick by either the Dolphins or the Heat, the player usually ends up being a superstar. I hated the Bam Adebayo pick for the Heat. Now he's a top 15 player. I
Yeah.
hated the Tyler Hero pick. Jalen Phillips, I liked him because I knew he went to the University of Miami. But like Najee Harris was right there for the tank. And I'm like, oh my God, we're going to get Jalen Waddle and Najee Harris. And then we draft Jalen Phillips. I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and I
But
think we had the opportunity for Rousseau as well, who's one of the top defenders for the Buffalo Bills.
oh,
But
Greg
I,
Rousseau,
I
yeah.
still think the upside is greater with Phillips than with Rousseau.
I think Jalen Phillips is more versatile, and I think we're going to see that with Vic Fangio this year.
Yep. I'm
So,
excited. Great picture of him too, by the way.
yeah, I like this one. This one's cool. So now the next one, big player, fan favorite, Christian Wilkins. I know you were pretty happy about him coming back to practice the other day. What do we think about him? I know he was not able to get his contract extension. I think next year, though, that's a shoe in. It shouldn't even be a thought that it won't be. What do we think about Christian Wilkins this year?
So with Christian, I mean, all you have to say is the guy is on a contract year. When top tier players are in a contract year, basically they're playing for money.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing about Christian. We saw this during the preseason game when he was not in the game. He is a great run stopper, especially in that middle spot. But he is one of the top hustlers on the defense where a play may be going to the outside. And guess who's catching up to the running back that bounced out to the outside? Christian. He's running, he's not stopping. I think where there's some hesitation from some people that I've seen with paying him as a top tier defensive lineman is that he doesn't have enough quarterback sacks. He has a lot of quarterback pressures,
Mm-hmm.
but he hasn't been able to get to the quarterback as frequently as some of these other top tier defensive linemen. But that could change this year too. Like he knows, all right, how am I going to get paid the most amount of money? Here's what I love about this guy. They asked him, they said, did you ever, during your little hold in that he had, did you ever talk to the Miami Dolphins about possibly trying to get you a trade? He said, no, this is my team. This is where I want to stay. This is where I want to continue playing. So he wasn't disgruntled. He was just trying to make a point and say, hey, I need to get paid, guys. I deserve it. So you're right. He's going to get a great payday. Hopefully it's with the Miami Dolphins. If not, the man's going to be making a lot of money next year.
I think what made me like him even more was when he didn't get his money and Zach Sealer got paid and they asked him about it. He says, I'm just happy for Zach. Like he deserved it. That's my guy. We came in here together.
Yep.
All I have is pride and I'm proud of him for getting it. So I like that about
Absolutely.
a player. I like,
Absolutely.
these players, they love each other. They want everyone to get paid, but they care about themselves more because that's the type of world we live in. Like you got to look out for yourself or no one else will.
Correct.
He's not viewing it like that, which I like a lot. So now the next one. I don't remember which one I put up here. I think I do, though. Jalen Waddle, my favorite football player in the NFL. There's literally nothing wrong with him. I don't care what people say. I don't care if he jumps, tries to catch every ball. I love this guy to death. I am so happy we drafted him. My first ever football jersey. It's in here somewhere.
Jalen Waddle, huh?
Love
That's
him
awesome.
so much. I have him in every fantasy football league. Love him.
You know, he's on any team in the National Football League except for maybe the Miami Dolphins and the Minnesota Vikings. He'd be wide receiver number one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, he's that good. You know, fortunately, I feel like we've got two ones, right? One A being Hill and one B being being Waddle here. I think where he's, you know, I know he's coming back from a midsection injury, but he's going to be able to play this weekend from what was announced today. He just needs to make sure he catches all of his balls. Last year was the first season where we saw some of the clutch plays where he needed to catch the ball was in his hands. He just needs to be able to bring those in. I mean, that happens so few times, but it was a little bit more noticeable because I think they were very important moments in games. And that's why people started really getting on his case and thinking to myself, geez, did you watch him last season? You know, the rookie reception record, his rookie year. And then he follows up with a strong season, you know, year two. And this year, I think he's going to have another 1,000-yard receiving yards this season because he's got Tua thrown to him. And again, there's so many options. And I think teams are going to be trying to cover Tyreek, which is going to give Jalen an opportunity to, you know, to get some more catches and some more yards. So I'm up on him too. I love Jalen. He's just a great player.
I know the Dolphins are really high on him too. They think he could break out this year to be a top 10 receiver. He put the work in. He came into camp. He's stronger. He's faster, if that was even possible.
Yep. Agreed.
And I do agree with you on he didn't catch a lot of the balls because I noticed most receivers, they'll put their hands up and they'll just try to catch it. Jalen would jump up and then try to catch it in the gut. And it would just bounce off of his probably insanely toned abs.
Yeah. And sometimes you wonder, like, why did you jump? You just could have been able to catch it with your hands. But you know, everybody
You're a gifted
everybody plays
athlete.
differently. Yeah.
All right, on to the next one. Raheem Mostert. I know we talked a little bit about him. He did add some weight. He said that. He added weight this year because he wants to be able to run through people, not have to run around and agility-like runs. He wants to just be able to pound it through. What do we think about Raheem Mostert? Because I am glad we brought him back. I've always liked him. I just know that injuries is a problem with him. But hopefully adding some weight will negate some of these injuries. I don't know.
You actually nailed it on the head. You know, for Raheem, he's one of the fastest running backs in the National Football League from a speed perspective. But he has throughout his entire career, he has had some challenges with staying healthy an entire, 17 game football season. And again, it's not one of those things. I don't blame him. You know, it's his body and it's the way that he's getting hit. I mean, I don't know how every single running back doesn't get some injury throughout the season because of the number of times that they get hit, throughout the season. So I just think you get him out into open space and the guy's going to make magic happen. I know last season we saw glimpses of that and we just need to see consistency from him. And if we can, then he'll take that number one spot and he'll continue to ride it. And again, Coach McDaniel is going to be focusing on the run per him, as long as he's not like throwing smoke screens out there for all the other NFL teams that are watching his press conferences. So Raheem should get a lot more opportunities to run the ball.
And it also helps that, he's familiar with McDaniel. McDaniel's familiar with Mostert. I think that helps a lot. And that's why I personally think he's going to be the odds-on RB1 this year. But, A-Chain's right there. He could take it. I think it's going to be Mostert, though, and I am high on him this year. I don't know about
to see
a
the
top
young
10
kid
back.
get an opportunity. I definitely want to see the young guy get an opportunity. I want to see what we got from a chain, but it might take him a little while to get acclimated to the NFL too. So there's that.
Next, Devon A-Chain.
Yeah, perfect timing.
So you just said you want to see what we have in him. What excites you the most about him?
I like his speed. I like his power. He's not a Derrick Henry type that's, all muscular, is going to knock people to the ground as he's running, but he's going to be able to get through holes, and he's going to be able to catch from the backfield, and he's fast. I saw all of his college highlights, and then the short number of times that he had the ball in the preseason this season. And the one thing I noticed was, actually, I'm going to give Josh Houts some love right now, because Josh Houts put together a film of every touch for a chain in the preseason. And he pointed it out, and you could see it clearly. Every time he got tackled going forward. He never went backwards, lost yards. He always gained an additional yard or two when he was getting tackled. And that's a skill. And that's a skill you want to see with your running back. My prediction with him was, I was hoping by the middle of the season, after the third or middle of the season, he'd take over in the starting spot for the run. But again, there's a lot that he has to do to be able to show that, and he's got to be healthy. His shoulder needs to be healthy to be able for him to do that.
I like what you said about the speed. I mean, it just stays consistent with what the Miami Dolphins are. They're just fast. But I know he's one of the shorter backs in the league, right?
Yes, he is. Yeah.
I don't know if maybe this year he's going to be a starting running back. I think it's just going to be Mostert. But I think that
Yeah.
next year, because we only signed Mostert to a 1-year deal, I think if he plays the way we think he can play and the way a lot of people think he can play, because I know a lot of reporters are high on A-Chain, I think that just solidifies him as the RB2 over Jeff Wilson, no matter how comfortable Jeff Wilson is in this offense, because of what you said. He's fast, he goes forward, and that's what you need. You need somebody like that if like Tua is getting pressure, just dump it off and let the fast guy just go.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you too, Jeff Wilson, I don't know if he's going to play this season. And the only reason why I say that is the coach mentioned it last week. He said, we expect Jeff Wilson to be back at some point this season. And when you say that, and you don't say we'll see him within the first couple of weeks or we'll see him sooner than later, that makes you a little concerned. Like, is Jeff really going to be able to come back? We got a small opportunity to see him last season. I like some of the things we saw from him, but again, I'd like him to come back and see what he can do.
That's news to me. I didn't even know about that. Thank you for telling me that.
You're
Good
welcome.
thing I didn't pick Jeff Wilson in any fantasy leagues.
Some people did, but you got the IR spot, so they're going to be able to put him on IR for a little while.
And the last one, Tua Tagovailoa, as I like to call him. Now, before I let you go, I wanna speak on Tua real quick, just for me, for all my friends that are gonna listen to this. I'm not in love with Tua, but I don't hate him by any means.
Sure.
He's the Miami Dolphins quarterback. I love him as a person. I think he's sweet. I think he's genuine. I think he's a talented football player. But if he's going to be the quarterback of my team, I'm going to love him. I'm going to hype him up. I'm going to cheer for him to win MVP. I'm going to draft him in fantasy. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to buy his jersey. Do I think Tua is the franchise of the Miami Dolphins? I think he has the potential to be. Yes, I think he can be. But it's all about what the team does for him. The team has given him a good defense. The team has given him a good offense. If the team can protect him, because when he plays, the team wins. And when they win handedly. When he's hurt, that's when the Dolphins dolphin. And they go 9-8, 8-9. I this year think Tua can be a top 5 MVP candidate. And I think this is the year, I'm going to say this on the podcast with Big E as my witness, that Tua Tagovailoa plays more than 15 games.
Very nice. I was on a podcast last Wednesday. They said over under 14 games, and I went over as well. So I think we're on the same page there. But here's the thing with Tua. And 2 seasons ago, Tua was the most accurate quarterback in the National Football League.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem that he had 2 seasons ago was he didn't really throw the ball over 20 yards. It was a rarity, right? So people kept challenging him and saying he doesn't have a strong arm. Clearly, he can make those short to intermediate passes, but no long passes. He doesn't have accuracy there. So that was 2 seasons ago. Last season, we get Tyreek Hill. Guess what? Now he's the most accurate quarterback in passes over 20 yards for the season in 2022. So if you put it all together and you have your, accuracy in a short to intermediate zone, and then you have the accuracy, and some of that long ball accuracy may also be thanks to Tyreek and his speed and being able to get open and just like throw the ball 10 yards in front of me and I'll catch up to it, right?
Mm.
But still, Tua gets the credit for being able to sling the ball all the way down the field. And I think you put those two things together, and he is a top tier quarterback in the National Football League. And I know some people don't like to hear that, and I know some people look at wins and losses, but I also know people do look at how much he stays on the field. Now, Tua has done everything he can possibly do to prepare himself for the season to try and stay as healthy as possible. The jujitsu classes that he took during the offseason this year, hopefully that will help him. There were a couple instances in the preseason where he got thrown to the ground and he somersaulted, or the way that he landed was differently than some of those hard hits that we saw last season where he got those concussions. So hopefully he has addressed that, because the one thing we have not yet seen is a 17-game Tua Tagovailoa. And I think if we do see that, the Dolphins are going to have a very nice record at the end of the season and will be able to make some noise in the playoffs. I think it's up to him. The one thing, again, and we talked about it earlier, was the offensive line. Does Tua have the offensive line that's going to be able to protect him enough to allow him to stay healthy? Here's the bottom line, though. I don't know if you've seen the Netflix series Quarterbacks.
I just finished it. It was great.
Oh, it's fantastic, right? And they had one episode that was all about quarterbacks getting hit.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact of the matter is, no matter how good of a quarterback you are, because I think Patrick Mahomes is probably the best quarterback in the National Football League right now, or he's right up there. Some people argue like top 2 or 3. But he got hit plenty of times, and the question is, or the point is, how do you respond to those hits? How do you respond to being injured during a game? Kirk Cousins was sitting there playing with bruised ribs for a couple of games, and you could hear him on the sideline, agonizing over the pain that he had. But then he's like, I got 4 days to get better. Next Sunday, I come back out and I'm playing again. So Tua, I think we all hope as Dolphins fans that Tua, when he gets hit, not if he gets hit, when he gets hit, that he gets back up and that he's okay and that he's done enough in this offseason. I do think he's going to have a great season this year. I think he's going to put it all together. He's got the weapons around him. We've got consistency on the offensive playbook, the offensive line, the wide receiver weapons. We haven't even talked about like Braxton Berrios and what kind of impact he's going to make on the offense. Mm-hmm. He's being coached by one of the best slot receivers the NFL has ever seen in Wes Welker. So this guy's going to have an opportunity to sit in the middle of the field while you got Jalen Waddle on one side, you got Tyreek Hill on the other side, and he's probably just going to be sitting in the middle being like, hey, if you need an extra person to throw to, I'll be here, right? So I'm just excited to get things started, because I really feel like this is going to be a special season. I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, and that concludes the picture portion. So now we're running low on time here.
All right.
Before we go, I want your opinion on what our record will be, and you can give me a small, quick explanation about it. You go, and then I'll go.
Yeah, I went through this exercise last Wednesday with the DolphinsTalk.com staff, and I picked 12-5. There were 5 of us on the round table, and myself and another person picked 12-5. Everybody else picked 11-6. I do feel that the Bills, I don't think we sweep the Bills, but I think we get 1 out of 2 with them. Also the Jets, I give the Jets a lot of, I wouldn't say hate, because I never really send hate, but I troll a lot of the Jets fans. And, I talk about how Aaron Rodgers is getting older, and yeah. But I still think they've got a pretty strong defense, right? Mm-hmm. So hopefully no Jets fans watch this. Well, whatever. So I think we'd split with the Jets as well, and then you've got some tough games, against the Philadelphia Eagles. You've got, the game in Germany against Kansas City, which I actually picked the Dolphins to win, because it's not a home field advantage for anybody out there. But there's some tough games. But I think, again, based on Vic Fangio, based on the talent that we have on defense, based on consistency with offense. Second year for Mike McDaniel, to where he gets to learn from some of his errors from last year. I think this team takes a step up, and I really think they do well. I think they'll be fighting for the AFC East title come the end of the year. And that last game against the Buffalo Bills in Miami,
Going to be
that's
telling.
going to be a fun game. That's going to be a fun game.
Well, DolphinsTalk.com, you can add another 12-5 guy to the list, because check me on there. I've been saying it for weeks. And I agree with everything you said. I don't even want to go back into what you said. With Fangio, another year of McDaniel. Tua, Brian Clark says he got fat. I don't think he got fat. I think he just got buff. And, some people, they put on muscle and they just look awkward. Yep. I think that's just Tua. I think he's pure muscle.
He did it to better himself, so that if he gets thrown to the ground, his body will handle it better.
Exactly. So I think with all that, 12-5, obviously, we keep saying it, bearing he stays healthy. But if Tua plays 15, 16 games, over 14, like you and I both just predicted he does, I think 12-5 is extremely within reach. And I think
Agreed.
AFC title game, bring it on. I don't even know how much money I have, but I'll spend it. Let's do it.
So I'm not a betting man, because if I were a betting man, I'd be broke right now with all the times I think the Dolphins are going to do well, and then they break my heart. So
Okay, I put 200 on them to win the Super Bowl the other day.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah, I hope that pays out though. Big E,
yeah.
we're going to a Dolphins game on me.
I actually, Dolphins go to the Super Bowl. Big E's going to the Super Bowl to watch them play, because I've been waiting my whole life for that opportunity for them just to make it. And I started watching the Dolphins in 1985 after their Super Bowl season, and we haven't been back since. It's been what is this, 20, 30, almost 40 years. Almost 40 years since the Dolphins have been to the Super Bowl. We're due. It's time. Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right, man. That's all I got. So is there anything you want to say before I let you go?
No, I appreciate this time. I hope Miami Dolphins fans enjoy this season, have a lot of fun. If anybody ever wants to come and hang out at the tailgate down in Miami, we're at East 12, Parking Road 209. We welcome all out of town guests, in town guests. So we say hello to everybody, and that's kind of where I hang out too. So definitely come by. And you can always find me on Twitter, or now it's known as X, at Ian693, and podcasting every Wednesday night with DolphinsTalk.com. On Wednesday nights we go live.
My goal this year, I've never been to a Dolphins game. I'm gonna go to my first one. I'll definitely be hitting you up, see where you're at.
Yeah, definitely, man. Love to meet you in person. So definitely send me a DM, and I'll let you know where I am, and we can definitely say hello. That would be awesome.
We'll have to get you back on midway through the season, see how our predictions are going.
If we're good. If we're not good, I ain't gonna want to talk to nobody.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't want to do podcast. All right, man. I appreciate you coming on.
All right, Jordan. I appreciate it. Fins up, everybody. Thank you.